You are going to die. Each and every one of you, no matter who you are, will eventually face that eternal question. Now, the question is, how are we going to deal with this universal fear? And humanity has been dealing with this fear since its very dawn. And so if you've ever pictured death as a figure with a sickle or a scythe, you have the Middle Ages to thank. During the plague, a third of Europe was wiped out in the Black Death. And so we had to find a way as a species to sort of process this collective trauma. And so the figure of the Grim Reaper was developed as an idea to give death a purpose and a meaning. So why do we tell stories about death? It gives this uniting factor a meaning. Stories provide familiarity and comfort to this concept that has been universally distant for so long. So I have an interesting relationship with death. My parents were both medical oncologists, so they specialize in mitigating and treating cancer, and their patients are often terminally ill. And so what they have to deal with on a daily is to figure out how are we going to process this in a way that we prioritize the care of our patient. Because sometimes it becomes better to have a patient deal with their death than to spend resources in trying to figure out a treatment. And so death to me is a natural process, and we need to embrace it. There should be no, it's not malevolent. Death gives meaning to our lives because our lives are so ephemeral. We have a push to drive to achieve. And so I like to think of death as this kind factor. So a recent study conducted by the University of Southampton concluded that when people are confronted with their immortality and they process it, their goals and their outlook begin to shift to become larger in scope. They also point to other studies that demonstrated that death acknowledgement can lead to a greater drive towards empathy and compassion in terminally ill patients. So if you suffer from the fear of death in a clinical setting, behavioral therapy can be used to sort of process this overarching fear. Patients face death alone, so talking about death can help alleviate this fear and break down some of the societal sort of taboos that we have around death. And so I'd like you to take a second to imagine life without death. What if no one died ever? Well, first of all, I would think that our patient would suffer with overpopulation and crowding. Hunger would be a primary concern. Imagine, if you will, waking up in a crowded room filled with all of your deceased relatives. Not a great life, right? So I'd like to leave you with a message of hope. Your life may be temporary, but the things that we build and the things that we drive to achieve today, they aren't. There's a piece called Longplayer, composed by Jeremy Finner, that was composed in 1999, and this computer network will start doing iterations on it, and it's supposed to be playing until 2999. It's one simple theme, thousands of iterations that will last hundreds of years after the original composer's death. And I think that there's something beautiful in that. So I'd like to leave you with this. Live to live. Do not let your life be governed by the fear of death. Push on, move forward, and live for today. Thank you.